Of course.
You're welcome. Okay.
So now this had killed the market for, of course.
You're welcome on Black Hot Fire Network. It's Africa Maria with my colleague INNSSETU from Uganda. This time around, I'm not broadcasting from Kampala, but INNSSETU is. You're welcome on Black Hot Fire Network. Those who are, of course, just joining us, you can subscribe on Black Hot Fire Network, Facebook, Black Hot Fire Network Radio, Black Hot Fire Network Live. On YouTube and Black Hot Fire Network
Ngoyingidde tonnangamba. Obadde
ate
oyagala kukolawo.
ng'ongambye ne nkugamba ngenda kuyingira. Tonkubidde
Ate bulijjo
simu.
ngoyingidde.
Nze obadde ogera nga siwulira ng'ekieko kyonna kikuba mu simu. Ne nkugamba mbu gendayo ngenda
Ate bulijjo oyingira we. Bulijjo oyingira we ndi tuyingira ffenna. Oba obadde oyagala kukola we.
Ebyo by'ongamba biri necessary really. Um,
Um, Good evening, guys. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, watching me here on Blackwood Fire Network. Let me hope all is good. Let me hope whatever you're doing is doing fine and is doing okay. Yeah, today is of course 30th of July. Yeah, we are taking the year slowly. However much, actually our electricity is on and off. It's raining, and that's why I have this heavy cloth on my body. But let me hope whatever you're doing, of course, is today is of course is fine, and let me hope you're doing fine. Of course, if you're watching me from, of course, our social media platforms, that is starting with Facebook, that is Blackwood Fire Radio Station, YouTube, Blackwood Fire Network 2, and and uh, and of course um, and of course the Twitter, Blackwood Fire Network 1. Yeah, that is where you can find us, and of course subscribe if you it is your first time to watch me here on Blackwood Fire Network. Please endeavor to subscribe. Of course, endeavor to subscribe, of course, to these different um, media platforms. Endeavor to do subscription. Um, Today, of course, being of course a Tuesday. It is a Tuesday, and of course, in Uganda, there are just 11 minutes past 4 p.m. in the evening. Yeah, today's topic is, of course, about Nigeria and, of course, and bad governance protests that are steaming. There is something Nigerians are cooking for August. Actually, this protesting has been extended until August 1st. This is when it is going to burst boom, and we see Nigerians on streets demanding for good governance. A lot of people, a lot of politicians, a lot of course, artists have come out to of course to have come out to endorse. Let me say that to endorse these protests. Uh, in Africa, actually, protests started with Kenya, and actually, at the beginning of these protests, very many people thought they will not succeed. Or the Kenyan protests, very many people thought that they will not go anywhere. According to what, of course, African leaders are used to do here in Africa, according to what they are used to do, of course, violence, actually detaining people, of course, restricting media freedom. So a lot of people thought that the Kenya protests will not succeed. However, Kenya protests are now acting as examples to different countries across Africa. The other week in Uganda, the Ugandans are never serious. But what I've realized with Ugandans fear Chiboko. They fear to be beaten than to be killed, like to be shot dead. That's what I've realized. Because you find Ugandans fighting with policemen having guns, but they don't fight policemen and the army having sticks, having canes, batons. They don't fight it because Ugandans fear batons, sticks, stuff more than the weapons, the tear gas stuff. So, of course, in Nigeria, the case is, of course, 1st August, when it has been scheduled for nationwide protests across Lagos. Actually, they said it's going to start with the Lagos, and that is the capital city of Nigeria. Nigeria has a lot of actually cities, but I think Lagos, it is some big city within Nigeria, and this is where, of course, these protests are expected to start from. Like, of course, African countries, they normally actually come out with strategies, just like it was in Uganda. The president came on Sunday, it was Saturday, he came and warned whoever that wants to stage, of course, the anti-corruption protests in Uganda, warned them about it. But people actually tried to do something. But we see that of course, bad governance in Nigeria projects have been, of course, a significant movement in Nigeria. So these nationwide protests were organized by Nigeria, are to be organized by the Nigerian youths to address police brutality and demand better governance. There is a lot of police brutality when it comes to Nigeria. Nigeria is experiencing police brutality. So we see that they gained, of course, global attention and took place in major cities across the country, including Lagos. Recently, there have been plans for more protests in August 2024. So they started in a small, actually, they tried to start, but the real organized protests are yet to begin in actually at 1st August this year. So despite of the threats and challenges from the police, from the government, we see that in Niger State, youths have already taken to the streets to voice their discontent against the hardships faced by citizens, while some groups advocate for protests. Others believe that local government autonomy is the key to addressing governance issues. So it is inspiring to see citizens actively engaging in their democracy to bring about positive change, just like when it was in Nigeria. But we see that, of course, the army in Nigeria, of course, the army in Abuja. So Nigeria's military, of course, it is said to that will intervene to prevent any violence at protests by citizens planned for next month against the bad governance and economic hardships. Defense spokesperson, that is Major General, of course, Edward Bumba, is, of course, in Nigerian army. He said so. So he said that Nigerians had the right to protest peacefully, but the demonstrations being planned from 1st August could turn violent, as they were, of course, inspired by events in Kenya, where young people took to the streets and, of course, forced their government to scrap almost 2.7 billion in tax hikes. So, so, um, so, the Nigeria issue, of course, actually, I've been seeing U.S. intelligence warning about the protesting that has not even occurred. It has been writing a big article about the Nigerian protests that are going to happen by 1st August. They said that they may turn into violence, into violent demonstrations. How do these people get to know about all this if they are not engaged in? How can you determine something that has not even occurred? So, so Nigeria, uh, when we look at, of course, police brutality, apparently, the current president of Nigeria is, of course, called Bora Tinubu, and of course, chief, uh, 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 of course, Chief Bola Auhem Adukure, of course, Tinubu, was born in 1952, is, of course, a Nigerian politician who is the 16th and the current president of Nigeria. He was a governor of the Lagos state from 1999 to 2007 and the senator of Lagos West in the Third Republic. So Tinubu has been in politics for quite a long time. So we see that Tinubu spent his early life in the southern western Nigeria and later moved to the United States, where he studied accounting at Chicago State, employed by Mobile, Nigeria as an accountant. So before entering politics as Lagos West senatorial candidate in 1992 and the banner of the Social Democratic Party after the military head of state Sani Abacha, of course, dissolved the Senate in 1993. So Tinubu became an activist campaigning for the return of democracy as part of the National Democratic Coalition movement. In the first post-transition Lagos state, we see that gubernatorial elections, Tinubu won by a wide margin as a member of the Alliance for Democracy. So 4 years later, he won re-election to the second term after having office in 2007. So he played a key role of course, in the formation of All Progressive Congress in 2013, and it is in 2013 that he was elected as the president of Nigeria. So Tinubu, we see that when we look at Tinubu, who was born in Nigeria into the merchant family, of course, Tinubu, of course, had of course education within Nigeria and USA. Tinubu, actually the current president of Nigeria right about now. Because when we talk about governance, people actually really bad governance, it means the governments that we are having, of course, the current governments that we are having today or right about now. So in Nigeria, actually, things are a bit, of course, crazy and different. Nigerian issues, they are so much similar to the Ugandan issues. When we look at Nigeria, uh, this is actually the other month during the Ramadan month, during fasting. I was seeing the police in Nigeria arresting people that had failed to fast. So it's not. This is not like Nigeria. This is another place also in the world or in Africa. But we see that following the size of power as a military head of state of General, of course, Sani Abacha, Tinubu went into exile in 1994 and returned to the country in 1998 after the death of the military dictator, which ushered in the transition of the Fourth Nigerian Republic. So, in the run up to the 1999 elections, Bola Tinubu was, of course, protege of Alliance for Democracy. So, leaders like Abraham and Sanya, and of course, Ayo Adebanjo, uh, of course, he went on to the AD, of course, premises for the Lagos state governorship elections in the defeating of the Fosh William and, of course, Hope, a former minister of works and housing. By 1999, he stood for the position of the governor of Lagos state, and that is Tinubu, on the AD ticket, and was, of course, elected as a governor. So Tinubu has been in governance for quite a long period of time, has been in the government for a long period of time. And we see that being a governor of the Lagos state from 1999 to 2007, during his 8 years in the government, Tinubu, of course, initiated new road constructions. I guess was even still young during this time. Of course, required to meet the needs of the fast-growing population of the state, that is the Lagos state. So Tinubu, alongside with the new deputy governor, won re-election into office as governor in April 2003, and all other states, of course, in the southwest fell to the People's Democratic Party. So in those elections, so he was involved in struggle with, of course, with Obasanjo controlled, of course, the federal government over whether Lagos state that had the right to create new local council development areas to meet the needs of its large population. So the controversy led to the federal government seizing funds meant for local councils in the state. So during the later part, his term office, I mean Tinubu, he was engaged in continuous crashes with the PDP powers, such as of course, the ADSEI, a former Lagos State senator who had become a minister of works by that time. So by 2006 only, Tinubu attempted to persuade the then Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku Abubakar, to become the head of his party. So the Action Congress, we see that Abubakar, who was a member of the People's Democratic of course, Party, PDP, had recently fallen out of the president, Obasanjo, over Abubakar's ambition to succeed Obasanjo as the president. So Tinubu offered Abubakar the chance to switch parties and join the SC in Nigeria, and of course offering him his party's presidential candidates with the condition that Tinubu would be Atiku's Abubakar's running mate. So Atiku declined the proposition and having switched to the SC, chose a running mate from the southeast, and of course Senator Ben Obi, although of course Atiku ran for office, Tinubu's platform in election, of course, started to raise. So the relationship between Tinubu and of course Deputy Governor during that time, who was Femi, became increasingly tense after Pedro declared his intention to run the gubernatorial election. So Pedro competed to become a SC candidate for the governor in 2007 elections, but withdrew his name on the eve of the party nomination. So he defeated the Labour Party while still keeping his position as a deputy governor. So Tinubu's tenure as Lagos State governor ended in 2007 when his successor, Babatunde of the Action Congress, took office. So Tinubu now, we see that Tinubu, of course, he comes out, of course, in 2007 to ask, they call it in my language, Okulamuza. He comes out to bargain, let me say that, to bargain the presidential seat. In 2007 general elections, of course, we see that by 2009, following the landslide victory of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, in the April of 2007 elections, Tinubu became involved in negotiations to bring together the fragmented opposition parties into the mega party, capable of challenging the then ruling PDP. So in March 2009, there was reports that a plot had been, of course, identified to assassinate Tinubu. So by 2013, Tinubu was among the several politicians who created a mega opposition party with the merger of Nigeria's three biggest opposition parties. So the Action Congress of Nigeria, the Congress for the Progressive Change, and All Nigeria's People's Party. These are, of course, are political parties within Nigeria, and a faction of All Progressive Grand Alliance, and the new PDP, a faction of the then ruling, of course, People's Democratic Party into a progressive Congress. So they merged all these political parties. Of course, for those that are just joining me right about now, I'm trying to, of course, to briefly actually talk about Tinubu. So a lot of people are asking themselves, who is this Tinubu that, of course, that is leading Nigeria, and why is it that the people of Nigeria are coming out to demand good governance within Nigeria, yet this guy is the president? We see that Tinubu has been, of course, in the politics of Nigeria for quite a long time, who would be understanding what people really need. So that's why, of course, I'm trying to elaborate a little about who is Tinubu and how does Tinubu come to be the president of Nigeria, that the Nigeria that we are seeing today. Sir, Tinubu, of course, the All Progressive Congress in 2014, Tinubu supported former military head of state, that was General Muhammadu Buhari. This is a former, of course, president of Nigeria. So he supported in 2014, of course, Tinubu supported the former military head of state, General Muhammadu, of course, Muhammad Buhari, leader of the CPC faction of the APC, who commanded widespread, of course, following in North Nigeria, and had previously contested in the 2003, 2007, and 2011 presidential elections as the CPC, of course, presidential candidate. So Tinubu, of course, initially wanted to become Buhari's vice president by a vice presidential candidate, but later considered for Yemi. So his ally, Ali, of course, and the former commissioner of the justice. So in 2015, Buhari rode the APC to victory, ending the 16-year rule of the PDP. So the PDP, this was the, of course, the political party that had been in Nigeria's politics for quite a long time. So we see that Buhari now gains success and ends the 16-year rule of the PDP, and making the first time an incumbent Nigerian president lost to an opposition candidate who was Buhari by then. So Tinubu went on to play an important role in Buhari, of course, administration, supporting government policies and holding on to the internal party reins. So in view of his long-held, of course, rumored presidential aspirations, in 2019, he supported Buhari's re-elections, I mean Tinubu, re-election campaigns defeating the PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar. And by 2020, following an internal party crisis, which led to the removal of Tinubu ally and the party chairman Adams, it is believed the move was to scuttle Tinubu's presidential prospects ahead of 2023. So, the 2023 presidential elections, we see that on 10th January 2022, Tinubu made his formal announcement of candidates for president in Nigeria. And Tinubu, of course, won the party convention vote of the ruling APC, scoring over an estimated number of votes to defeat the vice president Yemi, who had also had, of course, desires of becoming the president of Nigeria. And of course, in 2023, that was March, we see that Tinubu, the winner of the 2023 presidential elections, was declared the president-elect after he polled a number of votes to defeat his opponents. So his runner-up, Atiku, of the opposition People's Democratic Party, polled also some votes, and of course other, of course, candidates. So he has been a president of Nigeria since, of course, 2023 until the present, of course, that we are seeing. That is Tinubu. So Tinubu, of course, constitutionally began his presidency on 29th May 2023, and he was sworn in as the president of Nigeria by the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So his government, having cleared of course, the legal hurdles of opposition following the March elections, is generally accepted unopposed and has, of course, international legitimacy. Several heads of states and government, of course, attended the swearing in of his incarnation. But we see that Tinubu is in his, of course, inaugural address, promulgated and, of course, the removal of the government subsidies on fuel. And, of course, the statement in his inaugural, of course, address caused the initial panic buying and, of course, an overnight increase in prices at fuel pump stations in Nigeria. So the National Labor, of course, Union called for nationwide strike and protests over the increase in fuel. So I think this is the part where we all, oh, yep. Jib Jabba, hello Jib Jabba, how are you today? How are you doing? How are you doing there? Jib Jabba says, hi Setu, listening in while working my black job. Stay well, bro. Thank you, Jib Jabba, for coming through. Let me hope you're doing good. Let me hope your Tuesday is moving on. Well, Jib Jabba, it is raining this side. It is very cold. It is raining. Our electricity is up and down. It is fluctuating. It is not stable. But let me hope you're doing good, GB Jabba. Let me hope you're doing fine. I'm here talking about actually Nigeria and bad governance protests that are steaming. So Jibijaba people in Nigeria, of course, yeah, there are some small protests that have been going on in Nigeria, but people now have, of course, scheduled the general protesting to 1st August. So they want to end bad governance and the hardships, of course, Nigerians are going through. Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. Oh, that's great, Jibijaba. You're doing good. So, so people in Nigeria want to end bad governance, and of course, end that, of course, the injustices that or the police brutality, of course, in Nigeria. The other time, Jibijaba, I remember we talked about how the police in Nigeria was arresting Muslims who had failed to fast. So there is a lot of police brutality in Nigeria, irrespective of what Nigeria is going through. The police is also adding a huge, of course, a huge block on the people of Nigeria. They are going through a lot. So I was still saying, of course, how problems, of course, came about with the Tinubu's government and why people want to protest, want to carry out, of course, serious protesting on 1st of August. We see that during the incarnation of Tinubu on his incarnation address or a speech, this guy said that the price actually he said that in his statement he said that that of course that the government of course is going to subsidize on fuel. So the statement caused the initial panic buying, of course, and an overnight increase of prices at fuel pump stations within Nigeria. So the National Labour Union called for nationwide strike and protest over the increase in fuel price. So it started with the increase of fuel price. At the time as we talk about these things, there is nothing in a country that can be done without fuel. Let me say that. Because for you to transport, let it be forward from villages to towns. You need a car that car needs fuel. For you to do something, let it be what? For you to go at work, you need to travel by either bus, by either in Africa by border, matatu, you need to be transported at work. That, of course, transporting machine, let it be a car, let it be a bus, trailer, whatever thing you use for transportation, it needs fuel. So any increase in fuel in a country, actually it leads to an increase in every product in a country. Let it be salt, let it be sugar, let it be a gas, let it be clothes, almost everything. So if you wake up, of course, proudly and you talk about increasing prices of fuel, you're joking with people. Have you ever seen this? Have you ever seen this happen in Uganda when, of course, a fuel hiked? It was immediately after COVID. Immediately after COVID time when the fuel prices hiked in, of course, in Uganda, but we bought things expensive. At the time was I would actually during that time I was still in the village. Actually when COVID started, I went immediately to the village. I went immediately to the village. I didn't want to be actually. I thought they were going to close me within Kampala. Peter was doing nothing. They weren't allowing us to work. So I thought they were going to close me within Kampala during COVID time. So I rushed immediately to the village. So during that time, I was so surprised with my village mates. Those people that have big farms, big farmlands, or big actually that have that cultivate crops within the village. They also hiked the food. Yeah, they put no transport to transport that food. But you could go to these people and they say, oh, fuel is expensive. That's why we are saying our food expensively. Jaba says that if Nigeria controlled their oil market, uh, there will be no need for subsidies. So the price would be under 1 USD per gallon, like in the Arab states. Yeah, true. Yeah, true. Jibjaba. When we look at, of course, the Nigeria's oil is not controlled by Nigerians. Nigerian oil. Nigerian oil. Nigerian oil is not controlled by Nigerians. However much it produces a lot of oil, but it is not controlled by the Nigerian. However much they say that the management, the control and management of the Nigeria's oil and gas primarily rests with the federal government, according to the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So the executive, the exclusive authority uh, over oil and gas lies in the federal level rather than the state or local governments. However, it is essential to note that Nigeria's oil has faced challenges due to corruption, because we have seen a lot of we have seen a lot of Nigerian ministers, a lot of Nigerian politicians and government officials selling out, of course, oil deposits to foreigners. It is not like Nigerian government, it is the one that refines oil, that sells out oil. These are, of course, these are foreign companies that we see in Nigeria, sorry. So we see that the Nigeria oil system is, of course, challenged by corruption, theft, and of course declining of course production. Despite being a major oil exporter, the country has struggled to meet its production quota, losing billions of dollars to crude oil theft. If you have any a lot of theft, a lot of Nigerian, of course, oil, I guess it is sold on black market because it is stolen. It is stolen by these government officials, because you can't see like someone like INNSSETU in Nigeria and is engaging in corruption and stealing of oil, crude oil. How? How? Do I even have the car that transports oil? Do I know where even oil is sold? Do I know where it is sold? Do I know even those people that buy oil? If I have anyway, if I have crude oil, what? So so now government is a front for Royal Dutch Shell and BP. Yeah, true. This is true. This is true, Jeep Jabba. This is true, Jeep Jabba. And the worst part of it is that Nigerian government as a government, it doesn't benefit in the entire, of course, oil process and system. Rather, they are individuals. There are certain individuals within the government that get profits in this, that get money. For them, they are rich. They are driving expensive cars. They are living the desired life, the dream life, their dream life. But it is not like the government is getting out of this. It is a certain group of people that are getting profits out of this oil. Because how can we see like Tinubu coming to, of course, to power and says that subsidize, like, and of course they ended up raising prices for oil, a country that produces oil. Why is it? It is the same thing that I normally, of course, tell Maria here, that we produce our electricity here, we produce electricity here, we even export electricity here in Uganda. But why is it that we have electricity, of course, a fluctuation? Why is it that our electricity is unstable every time? Yet those countries where we export electricity, the electricity doesn't go off. Rwanda is one of those countries where Uganda exports electricity. Their electricity doesn't go off. But in Uganda, where we are the source of electricity, our electricity is never stable. Besides being never stable, our electricity is expensive. It is expensive for you to load electricity. It is expensive. Why do we like in the native language they normally say that, why do you eat alone on yourself? You eat alone on your, like, you eat alone on yourself. Why do we have that kind of life? Because the same person that is of course that is doing corruption in oil in Nigeria, this is a person that drives expensive cars. Dibjaba says that your infrastructure sucks. America is not far behind. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And when these people actually, when they get these profits, um, all what they do is they go and invest their money in foreign countries. You find someone with a huge billions of money on a foreign account, let it be in USA. For us, we normally sit back and we get to realize that these people are keeping money in foreign banks. When USA now stands up and says, INNSSETU, we are not going to give you your money. We're not going, we are freezing all the accounts, all the money that you are having in the USAR, of course, bank. That's how we get to realize that these people that have been taking a lot of money out of the government. When USS it says that, you know why, INNSSETU, don't come back this sides. All the buildings that you have in USA, we're actually we have been captured. We have been following you. Have been doing a lot of corruption within Africa. That's how we get to realize that these people take a lot of money. These people keep a lot of money because there is a lot of money with oil. There is a lot of money with oil. When it comes to oil, a lot of money is got out of oil. Like a lot of money. A lot of money is got out of oil. Actually, no matter why we see that those Arab states, they actually they're actually no matter why we see those Arab states, they are living a life of an independent, actually an independent life. Those Arab states, it is because of oil. Why is it that we can't see that in Nigeria, a country that produces oil, like good oil? Nigeria, because oil actually it is the biggest exporter. But when you look at all those companies, like Jim Jabba said, when you look at all those companies that do that of course that work in the exportation, refining, transportation of oil, they are not Nigerian companies. Yet, even within Nigeria, I said oil is expensive, fuel is expensive, is extremely expensive, and that's why actually very many people nowadays they're not buying cars, or they're not buying cars or motorcycles. It is because of the frustrating situation that we are going through, that Africa is going through, uh, because of because of what Africa is going through, because presidents don't give a shit about what we do. So, we see that later, which called off amid its ongoing negotiations with the government representatives, the government subsidies on fuel consumption had caused a hemorrhage on the Nigerian public purse for decades, and removal was, of course, lauded as a positive development by the World Bank. But we see that in 2023, Tinubu ended the costly subsidy of fuel to some extent, bringing a privatization to the petroleum industry of Nigeria. Now, this is another issue. They said that petroleum is controlled by the government, but we see a lot of privatization. So private individuals, they are owning oil deposits within Nigeria, no matter why fuel is expensive. But that is Africa. That is Africa. That is Africa. But President Tinubu, on the night of 9th June, of course, we see that suspended Godwin, the powerful governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, suspended him. And suspension was, of course, second ever had, of course, ever ahead of the apex of the bank in its history, was removed by the Nigerian president. So, was arrested by the Nigerian Secret Police SS in the Lagos, attempting to free the country to Benin. So the suspension was viewed as a positive development. So, as of course the conservative banker ascribed to the old school of propping up the Nigerian naira, so was repressed by his, of course, more economically broad, of course, deputies acting as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. In a statement by the president to the ongoing investigation of his office and of course the planned reforms in the financial sector of the economy. So the suspension and subsequent arrest of the governor by the secret police on charges of terrorism financing is seen as not far removed from the ideological learnings of politicking of the Apex Bank with his initiatives in the office, such as the arbitrage under the Buhari administration and currency, of course, redesign of the Nigerian naira. However, some observers have noted the role of politics in, of course, in the governor's suspension amid the clandestine rise in the government debt borrowing, ceding from 5 to 15% through ways and means on evil of incarnation of President Tinubu. So when President Tinubu came to power, he did a lot of changes, even ended up expelling uh, of course, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. But we see that on the back of his suspension, the apex of bank 5 days later, we see that he removed all foreign exchange tradings restrictions and allowed the national currency to flow to its lowest ever on the market. So the move, thought not to be unprecedented, signaled what was expected after the suspension. So Tinubu's financial reforms has been seen as a suppressing of the 1986 ASAP regime amid the drastically outfall the Nigerian economy on the government finances since the return of democracy in the 2 decades prior. So President Tinubu inaugurated the National Economic Council chaired by the Vice President. So the council is mandated to advise the President on economic affairs and is of course composed of the government of the Central Bank of Nigeria and all state governors of the Federation of Tinubu's close associate investment bank. So Tinubu, of course, made a lot of changes in the government. He of course, expelled people he felt when he came to power. He expelled people. He, of course, he thought they were not effective to him. But when we talk about bad governance in Nigeria, uh, when we talk about bad governance and why people are going to protest by 1st August, we see a lot of actually celebrities. Nigeria has a lot of, when it comes to celebrities, Nigeria has significant celebrities that are seen, of course, worldwide. A lot of celebrities came out actually and supported, endorsed this, of course, protesting. Actually, I remember there is a certain celebrity. I don't remember the name, but I know the face. For him, he said, for him, he's not going to protest. That protesting is for poor people. Even I don't know how people view things, because I don't think bad governance is made for poor people. Like bad governance is made for poor people. So the guy said, "For me, I'm not going to protest. Protesting is for poor people." But bad governance in Nigeria has been a persistent challenge, affecting various aspects of the country's development and stability. Nigeria has a lot of rebel groups, starting with Islamist groups and anti-government rebel groups that have been seeking good governance for a long time. The country's corruption. Actually, something, of course, the first thing that, of course, that shows that a government is lacking good governance is corruption. If at all in a country, everyone does corruption. Like wherever you go, you have to pay in something. It is called the kintu kidogo. You have to pay kintu kidogo. Well, like in Swahili, it's called the kintu kidogo. You have to pay kintu kidogo. Like wherever you go, you have to pay something. You have to pay something. You have to embezzle government funds. That is, of course, a sign of bad governance. So corruption and socioeconomic disparities within Nigeria. Since 1999, Nigerian democracy has been dominated by political elites who violate fundamental democratic principles. So corruption, and actually, when we look at Tinubu, besides being in politics for a long time, but Tinubu, this is a guy that, of course, that studied, that had his entire education system. He had his entire education outside Nigeria, and that is USA. This is what Tinubu had his degree in Chicago. Tinubu had his degree in Chicago, went in Nigeria. So these political elites that have been in, of course, in Nigerian politics, they have caused a lot of confusion to the Nigerian economic system, and we see that uh, corruption remains rampant and socioeconomic disparities persist. When we look at, of course, at the recent elections of Tinubu, president elections eroded public trust in electoral commission ability to organize fair elections. This has this actually this is something that happens to every African country. Whenever someone that is in power or someone that is coming to be elected is having money, he influences elections. And most especially, corruption in elections, it comes with external influence. Whenever there is external influence, that's how we come to see, of course, failing elections. People fail to get what they really want out of elections. They don't get the leaders that they want. So that's why we still have bad leaders in Africa that are creating bad governance. It is because of the corruption, the rampant corruption that is within Africa and Nigeria in general. So the other issue, Nigeria, of course, we see that the declining capacity of political leaders. Nigerian political leaders often fail to recognize, of course, um, systematic, of course, risks such as election fraud, terrorist attacks, other farmer conflicts, armed banditry, and police brutality. So their inability to address these challenges continue to fail the government. It is should we think that it is the army that is leading Nigeria, because political leaders within Nigeria, they fail to address these issues. However much we saw Tinubu suspending a number of a number of leaders when he came to power in 2023, but the leaders, he expelled them because of political issues, not because he had to expel them. So the failure to address such issues, such as the police brutality, these are the same issues that are going to call protests. That people are calling out. People are tired of police brutality within Nigeria. People are really tired. People are being killed like serious in Nigeria. People are being killed because of police brutality. Yes, in Uganda, yes, to some extent, the police is brutal, but not to the Nigeria's, not to the Nigeria's case. Nigeria is experiencing actually a dramatic upsurge in everyday violence, including abductions. People are abducted, religiously motivated attacks, assaults by armed gangs, and police brutality. police brutality, abductions by the police, detentions by the police. So that's why actually people are now they are coming out and saying no, 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 no. We want we want Nigeria to be for Nigerians, not for peace. No, I mean not for police, because it is doing of course brutality. People are being of course abducted. People are being killed, and when we see police brutality, of course, that remains a significant issue in Nigeria, Africa's largest democracy. We see that in October 2020, young people, uh, in October 2020, young people. This was during COVID time. Mm, This was during COVID period within Nigeria. We saw uh, 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 young people across Nigeria took to the streets in the end SARS protests. Their anger was, of course, directed at the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, the so-called SARS. It is called the Special Anti-Robbery, of course, Squad. So, a road police unit accused of extrajudicial killings, extortion, and kidnapping. The protests, of course, called for abolition of the SARS. I said this is the Special Anti-Robbery, of course, Squad. The protests called for the abolition of this squad, but ended tragically when soldiers opened fire on unarmed protesters at the Lake toll gates in Lagos, resulting in deaths and injuries. So this is how police brutality is in Nigeria. This is how people. This is how the police opens fire to the unarmed people. That was in only 2020, when we saw the ongoing brutality. Despite of the protests, police brutality, of course, persists. Reports of extrajudicial killings, harassment, arbitrary detention, and extortion continue. They continue in Nigeria. So cases of excessive force, torture, and other human rights abuses by security forces still continue within Nigeria even up to today. It is not the first time like Nigerians come out and of course protest against the police brutality. They have ever done this. They did it in of course in during COVID-19 period in 2020, to end that, of course, that special anti-robbery squad. It is like a police. It is like a police kind of unit. So, lack of justice. We see that victims of police brutality have not received adequate compensation or justice. The authorities must address this issue urgently. Otherwise, it is resulting into um, of course, it is resulting into protests that we are going to see. And when it comes to protesting, Nigerians, they're like Kenyans. They don't joke. That's why actually a lot of people are writing about this. They're writing about, because Nigerians, they have no joke when it comes to their rights. They have no joke. Besides the police brutality, because this is not the first time like it is not their first time like they are protesting for the same thing. So the other issue that of course that shows bad governance is of course the epistocratic system. So to address these issues, some of course propose uh, an episcocratic system, one based on knowledge and education of both voters and leaders, such as the system would of course prioritize informed decision making and competence over empty promises and bribery. So challenges ahead. Implementing this system in Nigeria faces obstacles, but recognizing the need for change is crucial. Strengthening institutions, promoting education, and fostering accountability are essential steps towards better governance. But the government is failing to do all of this. The government is in Nigeria. Tinubu's government is failing to do all of this. And it is not like Nigerians, those are the only issues they are going through. A lot of issues. Nigerians are going through a lot of issues. A lot of issues. Hey, Nigerians are going through a lot of issues. Poor education system. The government doesn't like for it doesn't care whether what or what. For them, their children are of course they're studying in good schools. They're having better education. They're having good jobs. Unemployment can't miss out in what we call um, protests in Africa. So, however much Tinubu comes out and says that there is no bad governance in Nigeria, why do people want to protest if there are no bad governance in Nigeria? So, uh, so like I said earlier, Africa, like why is it that at a time was presidents fail to address issues, what actually real issues, what people are going through? Today I was watching a certain live on YouTube today morning. Ruto had a live in the morning. Now he's coming out to people to say something, not in a state house, like like something like to be broadcasted, but he is coming out to people, directly to people. He was crowded with the people talking or having a national address, surrounded by very many people. Why is it that we don't see that when these people get to power? They go in state house, like, and it is very hard to see, like, actually, we end to see uh, presidents coming out to people and say something during campaign. You can never see a president again. We normally see them on TVs, but today more pressure of protesting. There is a lot. There is a lot of fire. There is a lot of heat that is in protesting. I looked at Ruto trying to talk to people, trying to convince people a lot of things as if he's in campaign. Today morning I was watching a certain live. He was trying to convince Kenyans. He was trying to convince a lot of Kenyans, but he thought actually things will be fine in Bambi. He thought things will be okay. He thought things would be okay. But he was surrounded with a lot of people, like standing on his car, trying to talk to people, like what, as if he's having campaign. It is because of the pressure. It is of course of the pressure people are putting out. So, uh, 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 we see that failure of governance in Nigeria actually manifests the declining capacity of political leaders to recognize systematic risks such as election fraud, terrorist attacks, other farmer conflict, armed banditry, police brutality, and put in place the necessary measures to navigate these challenges. That is why people want to protest, said this. In contrast with the current system in which leadership is attained through bribery, when we look when we look at in African countries, if leadership is not good through bribery, corruption, someone gets kintu kidogo, someone gets something in the wallet, in the pockets, there is intimidation. If it is not bribery, if at all you don't accept to take money they are giving you to do something for them, they will make you, they will put fear in you, they will frighten you, they will abduct you, they will arrest you, they will torture you. This is Africa. So so leadership, of course, in Africa is and of course the case even in Nigeria is attained through bribery, intimidation, and violence. So Nigeria needs an epistocratic system of governance that is founded on the pedigree of its political leaders and education of its voters. We see that at the end of the Cold War, African civil society movements striving for more democratic governance began to challenge authoritarian regimes on the continent. Declining living conditions with African countries and the failure of authoritarian African leaders to deliver the promises of economic prosperity, they made to encourage the acceptance of the government aided fueled to push for change. So at the times when leaders are coming out, they promise a lot, but they fail to deliver. They fail to deliver. I don't know why they say all of this. I don't know why they say a lot during campaigns. And at the end, they fail to deliver. But international donors' insistence on democratic reform as a prediction for aid gave impetus for Nigerian civil society to push domestic accountability. Thus, domestic pressure for political pluralism and external pressure for representative governance have both played a role in the calls for democratic reform in Nigeria. However, it has failed. So, corruption and, of course, socio-economic disparities within Nigerian democracy continue to run rampant. This is seen since 1999. The democratic space had been dominated by political elites who consistently, of course, violate fundamental principles associated with the liberal democratic system, such as the competitive elections. It's the same case that is happening in Rwanda. The rule of law, we don't see rule of law, political freedom, and respect for human rights. Look at the police brutality. Why is it that it is very easy for the president to come out and say and suspend the bank governor and fail to suspend those people that do police brutality, those policemen that brutalize people in Nigeria? So the outcome of the 2019 presidential elections further eroded public trust in the ability of the Independent Electoral Commission to organize competitive elections, and of course, after by the authoritarian influences of the ruling class. So, and there is something that there is something in African politics, like this is the ruling class. These people, they are no ruling class. It is the same case that happened within Kenya. That's why Ruto won. At the time, yeah, he bribed the elections, rigged, but to some extent, Ruto came as a person, like he was like, you know, the so-called Kenyatas, Uhuru Kenyatas, the Odingas. These have been the ruling class. These are the rich people. Now he came out, people thought that he's on their side, but he did manyanga. He did otherwise. So we see that challenge, of course, such challenges in Nigeria are indicator of of course, a systematic failure in Nigeria's governance system. So a continuation of current system will, of course, only will accelerate the erosion of public trust and, of course, democratic institutions. In contrast with the current system in Nigeria, we see in which votes are attained through empty promises, bribery, voter intimidation, and violence, Nigeria needs a governance system that will enhance the education of its voters and the capability of its leaders. Um, of course, statistically speaking, Nigeria has consistently ranked low in the World Governance Index in areas such as government effectiveness, political stability, and the presence of violence and terrorism, rule of law, and control of corruption. So Nigeria perceived in the 2020, of course, Transparency International Corruption Perception Index as a highly corrupted country with a score of 25 out of 100, while its corruption ranking increased from 146 in 2019 to 149 in 2020 out of the 180 countries. So while President, of course, Buhari won the 2015 elections, and of course, Tinubu won elections in 2023, promises to fight insecurity and corruption, their promises went unfulfilled. So they talked about fighting insecurity. We see that young children within Nigeria, even up to now, they are still abducted by, of course, rebel groups. A lot of violence is still going on. Corruption is very rampant in every sector in Nigeria. And when it comes to oil, their main export, things become worse. So we see that Boko Haram continues to unleash unspeakable violence on civilians, while the fight against corruption is counterproductive. So, at the core of Nigeria's, of course, systemic failure is the crisis of governance, which manifests in the declining capacity of the state to cope with a range of internal political and social upheavals. There is an, of course, expectation for political leaders to recognize systematic risks such as terrorist attacks, harder farmer conflicts, and of course police brutality, and put in place the necessary infrastructure to gather relevant data for problem solving. But the insufficiency of political survey required to navigate the challenges that Nigeria faces has unleashed unrest across the nation and exacerbated the existing tensions that we see. In 2020, I talked about the end SARS protests. That the SARS, this was of course a certain unit in the Nigerian police that of course that was combating robbers, but they were doing a lot of brutality. So the end of SARS protests against police brutality in 2020 is one of the manifestations of bad governance in Nigeria. No matter why people actually they are putting what they are putting first in these protests that are going to happen, it is the bad governance, and police brutality. People are hungry. People are angry about the police. So the spiral of violence in the northern Nigeria, in which armed bandits engage in deadly planned attacks on communities, leading to widespread, of course, population displacement, has become another grave security challenge that has, of course, sharpened the regional polarization. Because some public servants are usually unaware of the insecurities faced by ordinary Nigerians. This is true. This is true. How can you tell someone who is riding a big ride? Oh, Jibjaba says, I will see you later. Have a good evening, Setu. Okay. Okay, Jibjaba, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for those great comments you have been giving out, Jibjaba. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jib Jabba, for being here. Thank you. But we say, like I was saying that it is very hard for public servants to, of course, to understand the insecurities faced by, of course, ordinary people. For them, they drive, they are ridden in big rides. Um, they have security. They are guarded. They don't buy airtime. They get fuel. They almost get everything for free. Free food, stuff. They have money to travel abroad if they want. How will they? How will these people understand what people are really going through? They won't understand. These people won't understand what people are going through. They won't understand. So we see that, like I said, some, of course, some public servants are usually unaware of the insecurities faced by ordinary Nigerians. So they lack the frame of reference to make laws that address the priorities of citizens because they don't understand what people are going through. They don't think even the Boko Haram are existing in Nigeria. Their life is moving on well. They have money in their pockets. They have big, expensive cars. They have beautiful mansions. They have their children go to expensive schools, good schools. They are eating. They don't understand what ordinary people are going through. So the policies they make don't address the priorities of people. It is not only in Nigeria, but all African countries. I was like, why do these people like? Why is it that the policies that they put in place they don't apply? They don't prioritize citizens. It's not the life that they are going through. They think what they are going through, like everyone is going through what they are going through. So the lack of framework, the lack of frame of reference to make laws that address the priorities of citizens, they lack that. So the crisis of governance is, of course, accentuated by a democratic culture that accords less importance to the knowledge and the competence that political leaders can bring to the public office. So these, of course, systematic challenges have bred an atmosphere of cynicism and, of course, mistrust between citizens and the political leaders at all levels of government. Let it be local government, let it be Tinubu himself. So people have that anger within themselves. People are tired. People don't want to hear shit. People are very angry about all this, extremely angry. So, so political elites in Nigeria also, of course, exploit poverty and, of course, illiteracy to mobilize voters with food items such as rice, seasoning, and money. So the rice is usually packaged strategically with the image of the political candidate and the parties they present. So the assumption is that the people are more likely to vote for a politician who influences them with food than one who only brings messages of hope. So the practice of using food to mobilize voters is commonly described as stomach infrastructure. So, so like I said, uh, the practice of using food to mobilize voters is, of course, commonly described as stomach infrastructure in politics. You feed the stomach, someone brings rice. Now it is time for elections. Innocent wants to be the president of the next president of Uganda in 2026. Brings a sack of rice with, with his photo on that sack. That is stomach infrastructure. So the term stomach infrastructure arose from the 2015 elections in Ekiti state when, of course, the gubernatorial candidate Ayondele mobilized voters with food items and, of course, defeated his opponent Kayode Fayemi. It is, of course, undeniable that Nigerian political culture rewards incompetent leaders over reform-minded leaders who demonstrate of course, the intellectualism and problem-solving capabilities needed for adequately, of course, address systematic issues of poverty and inequality. So, we see that the practice of course, insensitizing people to be irrational and ignorant with their votes as, of course, unintended consequences of democracy. Uh, uh, so, political power should be, of course, apportioned based on expert knowledge. Nigeria lacks a system of governance in which leadership is based on capability. Rather, the political system in Nigeria is dominated by individuals who gain power through nepotism rather than competence, influence voters with food rather than vision, and consolidate power through intimidation and by incentivizing constituents with material gifts when they frame as empowerment to keep them subservient and royal to royal political followers. So by implication, the failure of governance in Nigeria is arguably the result of incompetent leadership. So Nigeria as a country needs a new model of governance in which leadership is based on knowledge and competence of both political leaders and electorate. One solution is, of course, is to establish a system of governance in which votes of course, politically informed citizens should count more than the less informed. So a political system in which political power rests exclusively on highly educated citizens. This idea, of course, we see that we see that the eligibility to vote should, of course, be accorded to individuals who satisfy certain educational criteria. So the notion that educational attainments should be the prescriptive for electorate to choose their leaders, of course, should also be put in place. However, one cannot ignore that such thinking originates from societies where civic education is highly, and of course, electorate can make informed choices about leadership. In Nigeria, the majority of citizens are uneducated, and these are the voters on political issues. They don't understand things, what stuff. Simultaneously, those who are educated are increasingly becoming indifferent to political participation. They have lost faith in the power of their votes and integrity of political system. So for any episcopocratic system to work in Nigeria, there must be a significant improvement in literacy levels so that citizens are educated about the issues that can use their knowledge to make informed decisions about Nigeria's political future. It is important to mention that Nigeria's political elites have exploited illiteracy to reinforce ethnic, religious, political divisions between groups to impede democratic ideas. So since the resultant effect of epicocracy is to instill knowledge, raise consciousness and self-awareness within a polity uh, anchored on the failed system of democracy. Decisions that promote the education of the uninformed voters are the rationale for the epocratic system of governance. The Constitution itself must ensure that only citizens who can formulate policies and make informed decisions in the public's best interest can run for public office, which is not in Nigeria today. So when the Constitution dictates the standard of a democratic governance, informed citizens will be better equipped to champion political leadership or determine the qualification of leaders. So governance will be, of course, alternative to Nigeria's current dysfunctional democratic system, while retaining the aspects of liberal democracy that maintain checks and balances. We are not, of course, however, obviously, the implementing of such system of a governance in Nigeria potentially contributes to more, of course, inequality given its highly undemocratic and, of course, exclusive nature. Our argument takes into consideration the contextual, of course, realities of poverty and illiteracy within Nigeria. So, the realization that poor and illiterate constituents have less power to evaluate the credibility of public servants or hold them accountable. The benefits of electing leaders are that the many citizens would desire to be educated in preparation for leadership. They are more educated. The more educated the population, the more likely it is a political leader who will be held accountable. However, the kind of education that is needed to be significant to transform the governance leadership in Nigeria is civic education. May I propose, of course, uh, May I propose, of course, three policies to promote, of course, good governance in Nigeria. First, aspiring leaders must demonstrate the intellectual pedigree to translate knowledge into effective, transparent, and accountable governance that leads to national prosperity. We couldn't be seeing leaders. We couldn't be, actually, it doesn't make sense to be having leaders in Nigeria. Okay, Emeka says, mhm, mhm. He's from YouTube. Emeka, how are you? Emeka, how are you doing? So, we couldn't we couldn't be seeing leaders in Nigeria. It doesn't make sense for you for we to have leaders in Nigeria who can't, of course, who can't see, of course, different things coming, of course, going on in the country, like corruption. They can't account for corruption that is within the country. Leaders who can't account for police brutality in a country. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make for any nation. Let it be Nigeria. So Uh, the second, of course, the second thing, of course, like, to me, I can talk about is the government must increase access to education through government-sponsored initiatives that integrate civic education into school curriculums. Currently, the opportunity exists for young Nigerians, particularly those in underfunded public education system, to learn about their civic roles at the local, state, national, and international levels, including how to emerge as participating citizens through academic curricula. So the government should also engage the support of the local NGOs to promote civic education across Nigeria in curricularly appropriate ways. We see that in Nigeria, the NGO should be empowered to define the legal concept of citizenship and, of course, summarize specific civic rights enriched in the Constitution into charter rights and responsibilities modeled after the Canadian Charter. So, which of course should include the value positions essential to an effective democracy, such as the rights of citizens, social justice, accountable governance, and rule of law. It can then be commissioned as a source as the resource for civic education within Nigeria. So a lot is going on in Nigeria. People of Nigeria are going through a lot of issues that I can't even complete in 2 or 3 hours. Just know they are going a lot of. When we talk about the issue of corruption within Nigeria, uh, we know that corruption is, of course, this is of course, an antisocial attitude awarding improper privileges contrary to legal and moral norms, and of course impairs the authorities' capacity to secure the welfare of all citizens. So corruption in Nigeria is a constant phenomenon. Only in 2012, Nigeria was estimated to have lost over 400 USD billions to corruption since its independence. So Nigerian politicians find themselves in a strong position of power and wealth due to their connections with the oil and gas industries in Nigeria. This is true. Nigerian politicians find themselves in strong position of power due to their connections with the oil and gas connections. So, uh, in Nigeria. So these, of course, gas industries are under the control of the state, uh, uh, of the state-owned company, which is called the NNPC Limited. Oil and gas exports account for over 90% of all Nigerian export revenues, while many politicians own or have shares in these industries. So tax revenues from the energy sectors are diminished, and the benefits of Nigeria's energy wealth is not even distributed throughout the country, with Lagos state benefiting, of course, disproportionally. So oil and gas revenues therefore account for vast majority of federal budget and of course the salaries of the government officials. So vote rigging by political parties in elections is widespread and corruption is endemic with the government. So business arrangements and and family royalties dominate government opportunity or of course appointments, paving the way for politicians, officials, and their business associates who together make up the ruling elite to ensure that they all become wealthy through behind the scenes agreements and the awarding of profitable contracts to favored supporters. In 2018, many government employees received annual salaries over 1 million USD. So corruption runs through every level of the Nigerian government, from considerable contract fraud at the top through petty bribery, money laundering schemes, embezzlement, and seizing salaries from fake workers. It is also estimated that corruption within the state apparatus costs the country's billions of dollars annually within Nigeria. So, when we talk about the rise of public administration and discovery of oil, I said that like every sector in Nigeria, actually, I'm sorry to say this. That's why they normally say that Nigerians are scammers. I don't want even to say this in public because every country has scammers. Every country has scammers, but there's a lot of corruption within Nigeria. So the rise of public administration and the discovery of oil and natural gas are two major events believed to have led to the sustained increase and incidence of corrupt practices in Nigeria. So the government has made, of course, stupid efforts, let me say that, to minimize corruption because it is the government officials that do bribe, that give bribery, that embezzle funds, that engage in corruption through enactment of laws. Of course, laws are always made and of course enforcement of the integrity system, but with little success. So when we see greedy, audacious lifestyle, customs, and people's attitudes are believed to have led to corruption. Another root cause is tribalism. There is a lot of tribalism within Nigerian government, nepotism and of course and tribalism. I said for you to be a prominent politician within the government of Nigeria, you have to be having a big share in the oil company. You have to be having connections. Politics starts with oil. That is where it starts from. If you have connections in oil, then it is very okay for you to go into the government of Nigeria. It's very easy for you. But friends and of course kinsmen seeking favor from officials can impose strains on the ethical, of course, deposition of the official, as these kinsmen see government officials as holding avenues for the fast for survival and gain. The pre-independence and the first republic, of course, and the first republic of Nigeria, we were trying to see actually the state of corruption within Nigeria, because in reality, Nigeria is going through a lot of things. When people wake up and say like bad governance, like we are going through bad governance, this is what they're trying to mean. This is what this is what ordinary people within Nigeria are trying to, of course, they are trying to make us understand what they are going through. So corruption through, of course, prevalent was of course kept at manageable levels during the First Republic of Nigeria. However, the cases of corruption during the period were sometimes clouded by political infighting. Azikiwe, we learned about Azikiwe, Nanda Azikiwe, was the first major political figure to be investigated for questionable practices of corruption. In 1944, a farm belonging to Azikiwe and the family bought a bank in Lagos. So the bank was procured to strengthen local control of financial industry. So transactions carried out by the bank showed, though Azkwe had resigned as a chairman of the bank, so the current chairman was an agent of his. So we see that most of the paid up capital of the African Continental Bank were from the Eastern Regional Financial Corporation. So in the Western Nigeria, politicians like very many politicians like, of course, Adijeko was investigated following charges of political corruption leveled against him by the opposition. So in the northern region, against the backdrop of corruption allegations leveled against some native authority officials in Borno, that is Nigeria, and the North government enacted the customary presence order to forestall any further breach of regulations. So corruption has been going on in Nigeria years, even during the Bazongo administration in Nigeria. So corruption has been a daily food these people are eating. No government has existed in Nigeria and has not been, of course, affected by the fatal, of course, by fatal, that has not been affected by fatal, by fatal corruption rates. All the governments, the Obasanjos, all those leaders that have been in Nigerian politics, the Mutua, of course, administration, the Gona administration, all these people, the Obasanjo, the Shangara administration, Buhari, and when it came to Buhari administration from 1883 to 1985, a cross-section of politicians, of course, were convicted of corruption practices under the government of General Muhammad Buhari. But the administration itself was only involved in a few instances of lapse ethical judgment. So some cite the suitcases scandal, which of course coincidentally, of course, involved them in customary leader Atiku Abubakar. This was also a former president of Nigeria, who later became the vice president in 1999 and was indicted for various acts of corruption. The 53 suitcases saga that rose in 1984 during the currency exchange exercise ordered by the Buhari junta, when it of course ordered that every case arriving in the country should be inspected, of course, irrespective of the status of the person behind such. So the 53 suitcases were, however, flied through the Maratha, of course, Muhammad Airport without the customary check by soldiers that are likely to be behest Major Mustafa Jokoro. So the 10 aside the camp, so there is that saga of the 53 suitcases that were believed to be tapping money on the airport. They did not even go through the real channels at the airport. I don't know whether you have ever had someone who is watching me right about now. You can tell me whether you've ever heard about this incident I'm talking about. But almost all administrations, the Bagida administration, the Abacha administration, Abasanjo, really a lot of and when we talk about Muhammad Bari, of course, I said, there is no, like I said, there is no leader. I don't know whether Nigeria is getting wrong leaders. I don't know whether it is just not lucky to have good leaders, Nigeria as a country, but every leader has been, of course, connected to scandals, has been connected to corruption. Every leader that has been in administration in Nigeria, because I said for you to become a leader in Nigeria, you have to be connected to oil, of course, oil companies within Nigeria. You have to be having connections there. And when it comes to corruption within the oil industry in Nigeria, it is worse than we may think. But when we talk about Buhari, between 2015 and present, the presidents of Muhammad Buhari was seen as the major action against corruption in Nigeria. However, in October, President Buhari sacked role-based report of three-man panel led by President Yemen of course, that investigated him and one the other. Buhari was reportedly presented with evidence that his chief of staff, Abba, took over 500 million naira bribe from MTN to help it slash the $5 billion fine slammed against it for violation of Nigeria telecommunication regulations, bordering on national security. So MTN fired the staff involved in the bribery scandal, but Abba was left inactive in his position as the chief of staff to national outrage, forcing Buhari to announce the probe of Charlie. So findings of investigations were never made public. So people are getting huge bribes. Do you know what they call it? A 5 million bribe. Even if when it is a poor country, a 5 million bribe, that is a lot. Ooh, that is a lot of money. That is extremely a lot of money. 5 million. Wow. It is extremely a lot of money. So, uh, uh, Nigeria as a country, of course, has been going through a lot of issues. Um, and when we see that institutions that, of course, that have been, of course, squadded to be perceiving corruption or to be, of course, engaging in corruption, the first thing is the Nigerian police. I remember there is a video he told me, I don't know whether I can get that video here. I don't know whether I can get this. The police is the first. These are the first people that take bribes. Let me get it. Let me show you this video here. Let me show you Nigerian police. Right. Right. I guess it is the video. I guess this is the video. I guess it is the video. It's the video. Let me try. Let me try to share this stuff. Let me try to share this stuff. Yeah.
Where are you coming from? España, Spain. Oui. From Spain? I crossed to Nigeria today. What do
The other one was of a woman. But
Bonjour. Hello.
you first share this.
Bonjour. Ça va? Hello. Huh?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Where are you coming from?
España, Spain.
Spain.
Oui.
From Spain?
I crossed to Nigeria today.
What do you bring for us?
I don't have anything yet. I came.
Don't tell me that.
I came today. I didn't change money. I didn't tell anything. I came.
See, nobody say the money. Don't tell me say you are collecting suspect the money.
Huh?
Money you collect and change it here.
Yeah, but I still didn't change. I have my credit card. When I get to Lagos, I take money, but I didn't bring. I came today.
You want to spend money with us?
No, I have the credit card.
Without assuming that you don't have anything with you now.
No, I'm sorry. No clothes. No, I'm sorry. I have to go.
Money.
I don't have cash. I came from
You see that?
Benin. So I didn't have anything. I have to go.
You see that guy is asking for money. That Nigerian That guy is asking for money. Listen.
Go to Lagos to take Benny. So I didn't have anything. I have to go to Lagos to take.
What do you want to do in Lagos? Your family there, yeah?
In Spain, my family.
What do you want to do in Lagos?
I just transit. I go to Cameroon, Gabon, Congo, all the way to South Africa.
Along
Yeah, along Africa. Yeah.
give me a walk. What is your work now?
Informatic in Spain. Computer. You know, computer informatic with the computer and the click.
Do you have family?
No, my family is in Spain. Okay, I think I have to go. Yeah. What time? This time is good here. 3:30.
You see, the police guy was asking, the police guy was asking, the police guy was asking bribery from this man. Unfortunately, this man said, I don't have I don't have cash. I don't have cash. So that is the Nigerian police. Then there is another clip about a woman. There is another clip about a woman. A woman biker was asked, it is here. It is here. I don't know why these people like shaking hands. It has no sound. Okay. Let me share this.
How are you? How are you?
Hello,
Hello?
how is everything?
Everything is fine.
From where?
Netherlands.
Eh?
Netherlands.
Now you dey come? What do you bring come? See the that, eh? Oh, you see the where they go?
Abuja.
Abuja?
See, what you read? Yeah, sir. That's it.
Olùjọ́ yà sínú 1.7.30 Netherlands. Abuja didn't know.
How are you?
Give me something else.
Everything.
Everything is fine.
Family.
Huh?
How's family?
Good.
Family is good.
This water.
Give me money.
What do you bring? What do you bring come?
Huh?
What do you bring come? I say, what do you bring come?
What you want give me? Hey, wait till now, what you want give me? Oh, yeah, give me something. Oh, yeah, give me something now. Give me something.
You see how these Nigerian police officers are demanding money from this, of course, female foreigner, of course, this female biker.
Wait till now, what you want give me? Oh, yeah, give me something.
You see, you hear, they're saying like, give me something.
Oh, yeah, give me something. Oh, yeah, give me something now. Give me something.
You give me something.
Give me money. Money.
Money. What?
Money.
Money. What?
Give me.
So it's crazy. So that is how actually I was telling you that according to the ratings, the police, the police is, of course, the first. These are the first guys that, of course, that get money from. Of course, these are the first people that, of course, that do much of corruption within the country. They ask money for everyone. Like whatever thing like you want to process, you have to pay in something. You have to give in money. They call it money. You have to give in money. Just money for those foreigners. I say, you give me something. You have to give me something. So the police is leading, of course, corruption. The corrupted institutions. The police is leading. Then political parties. Then national and state assemblies, local and municipal governments, federal and state executive councils, traffic police and federal road safety corps and the NEPA. We see that it was, of course, reported by that Nigerian police officers commonly gain the extra money by extorting local residents of the sum of 50 Nigerian naira. And of course, 3 Nigerian police officers from the Anambra state were arrested on charges of extorting 3 residents in 2020, and 2 Nigerian police officers from Lagos, of course, one at the rank of assistant superintendent of police, of course, these were both arrested on charges of extorting a woman. The next day, another Nigerian police officer, of course, from Lagos, and this was an inspector, of course, was arrested after being caught on camera extorting a motorist. Can you imagine? A motorist. So corruption in Nigeria, it is another of course pressing factor, and what makes things, of course, hard, and what makes things to be hardened is like the police, that where people actually wish to get, of course, justice. It is actually it is the institution that is highly, of course, corrupted.